I still don't know why I didn't run. Everything in my body screamed at me to back away slowly, not make eye contact, maybe even drop the mushrooms and climb a tree. But I couldn't move. She wasn't roaring. She wasn't charging. Her huge chest was heaving, her eyes wide and wet. And for a second, I swear to God, I thought she was crying. The bucket of mushrooms was digging into my forearm, but I didn't dare shift. She looked at me like she needed something, like she knew I was human. And that meant maybe I could help. It made no sense. It still doesn't. We stood there, maybe 15 feet apart, in the filtered light of the birch trees. Her fur was dark and patchy, like she'd been through something. One ear was torn. Her breathing was sharp, quick, and then she turned. Not bolted. Turned. Took a few steps away. Then looked back. My brain said no, but my legs did something else. I took a step. Then another. My boots sank slightly into the moss. The air felt tight. I didn't even notice I dropped the mushrooms until later. She walked slowly, with a kind of heaviness in her steps. Not limping, not exactly, but dragging. She crossed a patch of rocky ground, stepped over a fallen log, stopped to glance back again. I followed, my heart like a trapped bird inside my chest. I kept telling myself to turn around, that this was madness, that people get killed doing things like this. But something in the way she moved, in that first look she gave me, kept me going. She wasn't leading me into an ambush. She was showing me something. The path got steeper. We were heading into a hollow I hadn't noticed before. Even though I'd hiked this forest for weeks now, I didn't hear birds anymore. Just the soft cracking of twigs and her heavy breathing. She stopped near a boulder, then looked back at me one more time. Then she stepped aside. There, down a short slope, was a crevice between two large rocks, partly blocked by fallen branches. It took me a second to realize what I was hearing. A faint, high-pitched sound, almost like a whimper. I crept closer, half crawling down the slope. The bear didn't stop me, didn't growl. She just watched. I cleared some of the branches carefully. And that's when I saw it. A bear cub, small, shaking, one paw awkwardly twisted beneath its body, trapped under part of a thick branch. Its eyes locked on mine. It didn't even flinch. I turned back toward her. She was watching me. Still, no noise, just eyes. "Okay," I whispered, though I wasn't sure to whom. I dug in my pocket for the small camping knife I always carried. It was dull. I didn't think it would help. But I started working on the branch anyway, sawing away, trying to avoid sudden movements. The cub let out a faint cry. The mother didn't move. It took me a good 10 minutes to break enough of the branch to lift it. My hands were shaking. The cub tried to move, but its leg was still pinned. I wedged my shoulder under and heaved. The branch shifted. The cub scrambled, dragging its back leg, and collapsed next to a bush, panting. It looked up at its mother. She took a step forward, stopped, waited. I backed away, slow and deliberate, gave them space. She approached the cub, sniffed it, licked its head, and finally let out a deep, low sound. A rumble. Relief, maybe? I stood there, frozen. I had no idea what to do next. I didn't even know how to get back. Then she looked at me again, just for a moment. Not a threat, not a warning. Something else. She turned back to her cub and curled her massive body around it. I exhaled, realized I hadn't breathed properly in 5 full minutes. And that was how it started. The next morning, I woke up with dirt still under my fingernails and my heart still pounding like I was being chased. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that cub's face, heard its soft cries, and I remembered her eyes, how they watched me, not with rage, but with something I can only describe as hope. I didn't know what the rules were. I didn't even know if I should go back. But something inside me said I had to. If the cub was still injured, it might not survive. And if she let me near once, maybe she would again. Maybe not. I had to try. I packed what I could carry without making noise. A small camping axe, gauze, a bottle of water, and a handful of apples. It felt ridiculous, like I was going to picnic with a bear. But I figured I'd regret bringing nothing more. The forest looked different that day. quieter. I moved slower, watching every step, ears straining for any sound. I reached the hollow again, heart racing. She wasn't in sight. I hesitated. Then I heard the same soft sound. The cub, still there. I crept down, crouched low, hands out. The little one was lying close to where I'd left it. Its back leg was swollen, and it wasn't putting any weight on it. Its chest rose and fell quickly. The sound it made was somewhere between a whimper and a hiccup. Then I heard it, a deep breath behind me. She was there. I turned slowly. She was standing maybe 20 feet away, halfway hidden in the underbrush. Her ears were up, her body tense, and her eyes were fixed on mine. I raised one hand, showed her the apples, placed them gently on the ground between us. Then I backed up. She didn't move, so I turned my attention to the cub. I didn't try to touch it. I just crouched a few feet away, took out the axe, and started clearing the last of the branches. The cub flinched once, but didn't cry out. That's when I saw it. Part of the branch had broken and driven a splinter deep into the leg. It wasn't bleeding much, but the swelling was bad. I needed to get it out. I looked back at her. She growled, just once. Low, not a threat, a warning. I nodded. I'm not hurting him, I said, more to steady myself than anything. I pulled out the gauze, ripped a strip, wrapped it around my fingers for grip, and gently tried to move the wood. The cub jerked. The mother took a step forward. I froze. The cub didn't scream. It just trembled. I whispered again. It's okay. I'm trying. My hands were slick with sweat. I adjusted the angle. Pulled again. This time the splinter slid free. Blood welled up, but just a little. I pressed the gauze to it, holding steady, counted to 30. Then let go. The cub looked up at me, eyes huge. It didn't understand, but it didn't run either. Behind me, the mother had gone silent. I turned. She had sat down, still tense, still watching, but no longer ready to spring. I placed the remaining apples on a flat rock and stood up slowly. He should be okay, I said, if you keep him off that leg. Again, I wasn't sure who I was talking to. I backed up the slope, careful not to stumble. She didn't follow. She just stayed by her cub, nose pressed his fur, eyes flicking up at me every few seconds. Halfway home, I realized I was crying. Not from fear, not from relief. Something else. It was like touching something you weren't supposed to see. A private moment. A wild, impossible thing. That night, I didn't sleep again. I kept wondering what would happen to them. If she'd find enough food. If he'd heal. If she'd let me come back. By the third day, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just curious anymore. I wasn't just following instinct or chasing a wild story. I was invested. Deeply. Completely. That cub was hurt. That mother was desperate. And for reasons I couldn't explain, it felt like it mattered more than anything else in my life. I returned early, just after sunrise. The mist still clung to the ferns, and my boots left dark prints in the dew. I carried a cloth bag with apples, raw eggs, a bottle of honey, and an old metal dog bowl I'd found in the shed behind the cabin. I had no plan, just hope. When I reached the hollow, both of them were there. The cub was resting in a patch of sunlight. The mother stood nearby, her head lowered, watching me. That's when I noticed it. Her front left leg wasn't touching the ground. At first, I thought she was shifting her weight. But the longer I watched, the clearer it became. She was injured. The limb looked swollen. Not bloody, but stiff, like she twisted it badly, or maybe worse. She shifted awkwardly when she moved closer to the cub. That's when I realized the truth. She couldn't hunt like this. Maybe not even walk far. She wouldn't be able to carry food back. Wouldn't be able to defend her cub if anything came. I don't know what overcame me, but I stepped closer. I kept my body low, my movements slow. I set the bowl near a stump, poured water into it from my bottle, then gently opened the honey and let a thick stream spill over the apples. I placed it all on a flat rock and backed away. She didn't move, but she watched. The cub sniffed the air, then, hesitantly, dragged himself toward the food. He sniffed, licked the honey, took a piece of apple in his mouth. The mother made a low, almost questioning sound. Not to me, to him. He looked at her, then kept eating. She didn't stop him. I stayed a while, at the edge of the clearing, just watching. When I finally left, I felt her eyes on my back the whole way. That night, I couldn't sit still. I dug through old supplies in the cabin, found a half-used tube of antiseptic, a roll of bandage tape, a small bottle of veterinary ointment from who knows when. I didn't sleep. I wrote a note in case I'd make it back. Just in case. The next morning, I went again. Same clearing, same silence. I sat a few yards away, laid out the supplies on a cloth. Didn't move beyond that. Just waited. After what felt like an hour, she limped over. Slowly, guardedly. She sniffed the ointment tube. Didn't touch it, but she didn't knock it away either. That was all I needed. Day by day, I brought more. Protein bars, raw fish, a blanket I left near the rocks. I never touched them. I never crossed that invisible line. But I was there, present, predictable, until the day she wasn't. It was the 5th morning since I first saw her limp. I returned early, same path, same careful steps. The cub was alone. He was pacing in a small circle, whining. His injured leg dragged behind him slightly, but he moved more than before. Stronger, but confused. Alone. I froze. No rustling. No breath in the trees. No giant shadow behind the rocks. She was gone. I approached slowly. The cub didn't run. He looked up at me and made a pitiful sound, high and broken. I scanned the trees. Called out, nothing. My stomach turned to stone. Had she left? Was she hurt worse? Had something happened? I sat beside a tree and waited. An hour passed. Then 2. The cub curled into a ball, occasionally lifting his head to scan the trees. Still nothing. I stayed until sundown. No sign of her. I stayed until the light started to fade. I told myself maybe she was out hunting. Maybe she'd come back after dark. But something deep down was already saying it wasn't right. Bears don't just leave their cubs. As I packed up the empty bowl and the blanket she'd barely touched, I looked at the cub one last time. He was shivering. The temperature had dropped, and the wind had picked up. A storm was coming. You could smell it in the air, wet bark and cold earth. He let out a low, pitiful sound. Not a growl, not a cry, just something that settled straight into my chest like a weight. I knew I shouldn't. I knew it wasn't the wildlife responsible thing to do, but I couldn't leave him there. I scooped him up, wrapping him carefully in the blanket. He didn't fight. He just trembled in my arms. I walked fast, every muscle tensed. If she was nearby and saw this, if she misunderstood, but the forest was silent. The walk back to the cabin felt longer than usual. I kept looking over my shoulder. Every sound felt louder, every shadow deeper. When I reached the cabin, I didn't go inside. I brought him to the old shed in the back, where I kept tools and firewood. It was warmer than outside, dry, and had a small cot I used during repairs. I laid him down gently, added another blanket, and lit the old gas heater. He sniffed the air, then looked at me. Big, round eyes, not accusing, just scared. I sat on the floor nearby, my back against the wall. I didn't touch him again. I just stayed. The heater hummed softly. Rain began tapping the metal roof. About an hour later, he moved, crawled a little toward me, then stopped. Looked at me. I didn't move. Then, slowly, he crossed the space between us and curled up against my leg. I froze. His breathing slowed. He let out a soft huff. And then he slept. I don't know how long I stayed there. My legs went numb. But I didn't move. Not until the storm really started. Thunder cracked like a rifle. Wind slammed into the side of the shed. Rain poured like someone had tipped the sky. I closed the door tighter. Checked the windows. He barely stirred. At some point in the night, I dozed off. A sound woke me. Not thunder. Not wind. Something else. A dragging sound. Heavy. Uneven. I got up carefully, stepping over the cub, opened the shed door an inch. She was there, soaked, covered in mud. Blood streaked down her side from a gash near her shoulder. One eye looked swollen shut. She swayed slightly, like she was barely holding herself up, but she was there, alive. I opened the door wider, stepping out slowly, my arms raised, palms open. "Hey, it's okay," I whispered. "He's inside. He's safe." She took a step forward, then stopped. I didn't know what to do. She couldn't come into the shed. It wasn't big enough, but she needed help. I walked back inside, grabbed the flashlight and the first aid kit, returned to the doorway. She didn't growl, just stood there, dripping, shivering. I shone the light down, showing her the cub. He lifted his head, made a small noise. Her ears twitched. She let out a low rumble, then sat, collapsed really. I knelt a few feet from her, opened the kit, pulled out gauze and antiseptic. I didn't ask for permission. I just moved slow, gentle. She let me clean the wound, let me press the gauze, let me sit beside her in the rain, the cub between us. And for a moment, the storm didn't matter. The fear didn't matter. We were just three broken creatures trying to survive the night. By morning, the rain had stopped, but everything was soaked. The world outside the shed looked like it had been wrung out, dripping and pale. I didn't sleep much, maybe 2 hours. I kept checking her breathing, making sure she didn't slump too far or stop moving. The cub stayed curled next to her belly, occasionally shifting to press against her ribs. She was still alive, but the wound on her side was worse than I thought. Not just a scrape. It had depth, edges torn, not clean, likely from another animal. A fight, maybe even a trap. I had basic supplies. Nothing close to what a vet would have. But I cleaned the wound again more thoroughly this time. Used more antiseptic. Applied the ointment. And for the first time in my life, I sewed skin. I'd watched videos. That was it. Shaky hands. A dull needle. Every tug made my stomach clench. She let out low rumbles but never snapped. Never flinched. By the end of it, I was soaked with sweat, trembling, but it was done. She looked at me, not like a bear, not like a predator, like something else, something impossibly close. That day, I didn't leave their side. I boiled water, made broth with whatever I had, set it in a metal pan near her nose. She didn't touch it for hours. Then finally, just before dusk, she licked at it. The cub ate, too, small bites, clumsy, but steady. By the second morning, she stood, wobbled, but stood. I opened the shed door, and she stepped out slowly, breathing in the cold, damp air like it meant something. The cub followed close behind. I thought that was it, that they'd head back into the forest, back to where they belonged. But she didn't go. She turned, looked back, then laid down beside the shed. For 3 more days they stayed. I brought food, water. I sat nearby, sometimes reading out loud. It sounds stupid, I know, but it felt right. On the 4th day, I held out a piece of apple in my hand. She walked up, took it, gently. Her nose brushed my wrist, and I swear I stopped breathing. This wasn't about training. This wasn't a zoo trick. It was trust, raw and simple, and it broke something open inside me. The next morning, they were gone. No sound, no footprints, no broken branches, just the empty space beside the shed. I walked into the woods, called out once. Nothing. It was like they'd dissolved back into the world they came from. A week passed, then another. I hiked every trail, left food out in case they returned. Nothing was touched. A month later, on a quiet, cloudless morning, I was walking near the base of the ridge behind the cabin. It wasn't somewhere I usually went. The ground there was rocky, uneven. I stopped under a birch tree to catch my breath. That's when I saw it. A pile of pine cones, arranged in a small circle. And in the center, a piece of honeycomb, neatly placed, not chewed, not discarded, placed. Beside it, a single rock, round, flat. On it, a muddy paw print. I knelt down, not touching it, just looking. My throat tightened. I didn't need words. I didn't need anything else. She had said goodbye, and somehow in all the strangeness of it, I felt more human than I had in years. Not because I saved a bear, but because she let me